So the most prominently used Deluge task is send mail. It allows you to send email based on the concept and logic you are defining in your custom function. This is how it looks like in a live environment. This is my send mail task, and these are the parameters I have defined. This is my content. This is what that will be delivered inside the email. Though Zoho CRM has the capabilities of creating email templates, inbuilt email templates, which look fancy, design, and marketing oriented, but a shortcoming is that currently we cannot use these email templates in our send mail custom function. But little did you know that there is another method that can be used to send these inbuilt email templates while using custom function, and that is invoke URL. So we can use invoke URL. This basically requires a Zoho flow integration. So you will create a Zoho flow. We'll create a flow in Zoho flow as a webhook type, and then we will invoke that webhook using our custom function. So for an example, on this lead, I have created a custom button, this send email flow, and I'm using this template. This is my template, which I want to send whenever I click on this particular button. So if I'm using a send email task, I was supposed to give this whole email template as something like this in my message. But now if I'm using this method of flow and invoke URL, I can simply use this inbuilt template itself. The way it works is, I'll show an example. If I click on send email flow, this is my email ID, testing Zoho. I'm sending an email right away. Trigger flow. Now let me go and check if I received the email. This is my email. This is the old one, which I received some time ago. So here I received the email. This is 6:58 and 6:58. So this is the email I have just received 0 minutes ago. This is the email I received just now. Now the way it works is you will have to create a flow. That flow will be basically a webhook type, and that will use send email template from these sections of available flow with Zoho CRM. So the way we do it, let me show you how it is done. So this is how the webhook flow looks like. So once you choose the flow type as webhook, system will give you this flow URL, which you'll have to use in your invoke URL. And then you will have to search for apps, Zoho CRM. Okay, got the result. It's a bit slow. Okay, so if you search here, so we have an action type here as send email template. This is what you have to drag here and connect the dots. Once you edit this, then you will find different parameters to define. These are the parameters you have to define. You have to give the entity ID, which is mapped here. So I have all these parameters here, which I have taken from payload, and then I have mapped all of these here. So I have my entity ID, email address. This is from email address. This is from username, which I'm taking from here, to email address, to name, and this is here I'm selecting the module along with my email template. So my this email template name is customer registration details, and this is what I have selected here as customer registration details. This is my module, lead module. This is the name of my this variable for sending email as a template, and that's it. So I mean, all of these which are not required, which are not mandatory, you can leave them blank. This subject in content is not required if you have chosen a template. Otherwise you could have given a static your subject here or content here, and that's it. So once you have configured this, you have to then write a custom function in Zoho CRM for that particular automation. If you're using a button, so on a button. If you're using a workflow, then in a workflow. And this is the invoke URL method which I'm using. So these are the parameters which I'm defining here, because I have to map these parameters within my send email template action somewhere here with my webhooks. So if you see, all of these are entity ID, from email, from name, to email, and to name. All of these are coming from my this function. So I have entity ID, to email, to name, from email, from name, and I'm basically taking all of these from my lead module. So this is my lead module, and I'm taking all of these data from here. This is my lead ID as an entity ID, my email, customer name, the email ID, where from email ID, basically this is the owner, lead owner's email ID. Then I have my owner name, and this is the function which I am using to invoke this webhook. So basically what system is doing here, instead of using send email function, instead of using this function, send email function, where you send an email to all of these parameters, based on all of these parameters, it is basically invoking an email template which you have configured in Zoho Flow. And for that, you have these parameters defined, and this is the URL where you are fetching it from. And these, based on these these data which you have defined as a map, and this is the method how you are fetching it, how you are basically using it with Zoho Flow. So if I, for an example, let's say, change my uh, record, and I do this test on another record. Let's say this is my record, another record. I'll give the same email ID because I have that email ID as test email ID. So in my template, I have also mapped these different fields. Basically, I've merged all of these fields. I have city, state, country, zip code, email. So I can give here, for an example, this is my street, this is my state, city, zip code, and country. And now if I use my button send email flow, it is triggered. I go back to my email. This is here. It is. I received the fresh email because I have changed the record. This is how the data is showing, because if you have data there, it will show you here. I did not take these. Yep, here. So this is one of the alternative method which you can use instead of using send email, if you wanted to send these email templates while using custom function.